Hello and welcome to the 20th lesson of this Excel course. I am Sumit Bansal and in this video we will learn about conditional formatting. Let's get started by understanding all the various functionalities we can access through conditional formatting. Conditional formatting, as the name suggests, formats a cell or a range of cells based on the condition, and if that condition is true then that cell is formatted, and if the condition is false then the cell is not formatted. Here I have some data. I have sales rep name, I have a region, and I have sales. Now I'll show you how to apply different conditional formatting techniques to this data set. Conditional formatting can be accessed in the Home tab, and here you have the Styles group within which you have the conditional formatting button. If you click on this icon, you would have access to all these options. Let me first select this numeric data, and now when I go to this option, highlight cell rules, it gives me all these options. It says greater than, less than, between, equal to, text that contains date and duplicate values. So you can highlight all these, you can use all these options to highlight cells here. So for example, if I choose greater than, then I can give a number. So for example, if I give a number 700, then all the cells with value greater than 700 are highlighted in light red fill with dark red text. You can change this format if you want, or you can specify your own format. In this case, maybe I would want to have green instead of red, and if you click OK, then that conditional formatting is applied. Now you can apply another conditional formatting over this same set of cells. For example, here if I go and I say less than and I select 200, then all the cells, in this case there is only one cell, so let me make it 300. All these cells with value less than 300 would be highlighted in this light red fill with dark red text. So I click OK, which means that you can apply multiple conditional formats to the same range of cells, and whatever conditional format is applied later, that would be applicable. So in this case, if the same conditional format is applied for 233, so if I say the value is greater than 200 and less than 300, then this cell would be highlighted in both the cases, but it would be highlighted with the color that you apply later. So now let me clear this format. I would go to conditional format and clear rules from selected cells. Similarly, you also have options of between, equal to, and text that contains. This cannot be applied on numbers, so I would select the names of sales rep, and I would go to text that contains, and here you can type a name and that would be highlighted, or you can also use wildcard characters. So I would use asterisk R asterisk, and you can see all the names that have R in it get highlighted in red color. Let me cancel because I do not want to fix this formatting. Similarly, you can also apply this formatting for date and duplicate values. So in this case, if I have duplicate values, maybe say in this data set, and I say highlight duplicate values in this color, if there is any duplicate value, that would get highlighted. In this case there is none, but if I go and I copy this cell down, you can see that now this is highlighted in a different color because there is a duplicate. So both these cells are highlighted, but if I delete this, then it is not highlighted because now it becomes unique. Now let me press Control Z, and let me clear the format. Oops, here. You also have access to more rules. We will see how this works later when I talk about the conditional formatting dialog box. You also get access to top and bottom rules. So top 10 items are highlighted, top 10% items are highlighted. Similarly, bottom 10 and bottom 10%, and above average and below average. If I click above average, you would see and highlighted in green, then you would instantly see that these are the sale values that are above average of this data set. Let me Control Z to remove conditional formatting. Similarly, you can apply data bars here. So you can see as I hover upon these icons, the data bar is applied on the data set that I've selected, and these data bars again are of different colors and are highlighted or are available based on the cell value. So for example, here you would see that this cell 991 gets the longest data bar because it is, I think, the largest value in this data set. Similarly, the lowest value would get a smaller data bar. These are gradient fills. You can opt for solid fill if you want. Similarly, you can apply color scales which highlight these cells in different colors. In this case it is green, yellow and red. which means that cells with higher value get highlighted with green and the lower one get highlighted with red. Similarly, there are all these different ranges. You can have blue and white and red, or you can have green and yellow and white. So these you can select from. If you want more control over it, then you can go to more rules. Similarly, you have these icon sets, and this is a very good option because this gives such readability to your data set. Now if you apply this, then you can clearly see that there are values that are top 33%, then they get highlighted in green. If they are in the bottom 33%, then they have a negative arrow. Similarly, you can apply these all bars and it would instantly get applied to your data set. And you can see there are a lot of colorful bars here that you can use using these Harvey balls and stars and these signals that you can use. If you want more control over it, then you can use the new rule dialog box, and when I click on new rule dialog box, it opens the new formatting rule dialog box here. This new formatting rule dialog box gives you a lot of control over conditional formatting. So for example, you can see these are all the options that you can select from a mouse or by a drop down by the arrow key. If you select format all cells based on their values, then you have all these rule description here and you can make the relevant changes. So for example, if you want to only highlight these based on 2 color scale, then you can select this, and as soon as you press OK, you see that this is highlighted with the largest value getting highlighted in a light color, which is I think 901 here and 991 here, and the lowest value gets highlighted in a dark orange color. Let me control Z and let me go back again to new rule box. Similarly, you can apply a 3 color scale and you can specify these colors. So this is 50 midpoint, this is 50 percentile, and then you can specify the lower range of the color and higher range of the color, which means that higher values get green color and lower get red. Similarly, you can use data bars. Here you can have a lot of control. You can check whether you want to show it for lowest value, number, percentage, formula, and all these options, and you can also change the fill color along with the border. If you select icon sets, then you again have all these options. All these icons are available for you to select, and here you can mention whether you want it from less than 33% is highlighted in red icon and more than 67% are highlighted in green. You can also change the number here. So for example, if I want all the sales with the value of more than 700 to be highlighted in green, and I change this to number and then 700, and again I change this to number and make it 300. Now when I click OK, you can see that red icon is given to those cells which have value less than 300, yellow for values between 300 and 700, and green to values more than 700. Let me control Z to go back. Now let me again open the new rule dialog box. Here you also have other options. So for example, if I select format only cells that contain, then it would again give you all these options based on cell value, specific text, dates, blanks, no blanks, errors, and no errors. So this is also a good way to highlight errors or no errors. You also can highlight top and bottom ranked values, again the same as we saw. You can access through conditional formatting drop down. So you can also access top 10% was there. Now you can change this value to any percentage that you want. Similar is the case with bottom. You can also format only values that are above or below average. Again, you can specify all these options: 1 standard deviation above average or 2 standard deviation above or below average. Then you can format only unique or duplicate values. So you can format duplicate values, or you can highlight unique values, and you can use a formula to determine which cells to format. Now this is a very good option. Let me tell you how this works. You can also use formulas to highlight cells using conditional formatting, and as I mentioned initially, a cell is highlighted when a formula returns true, and it would not get highlighted if the formula returns false. So let me show you a very simple example here. If you go to new rule and you go to this option, use a formula to determine which cells to format, you have this format values where this formula is true field, and here you would type the formula. It is always a good practice to first type the formula here in cell so that you're very sure that the formula is working. See if it is returning a true or a false, and then copy and paste it directly there, because in conditional formatting dialog box you do not get the drop downs and you do not get those messages and colored round brackets. So it's easier to make that formula here. Now for example, let's say I'm testing the formula whether the values in this in this range are greater than 900 or not. So to test that, my formula would be this value is greater than 900, a simple thing, and this is true because this is greater than 900, and I would drag this down till here, and you see I have these formulas here, which means that this value and this value should get highlighted when I apply this formula. So I would do the same. I would apply this formula. I've copied that. I select all these cells. I go here in new rule, and here I would type D3 is greater than, I would paste D3 greater than 900, and I would specify the format. And as soon as I click on format, it opens the format cells dialog box where I can specify the number format, the font, the border, and the fill. In this case, let me simply specify the fill, let's say yellow color, and I click OK, and I click OK. And as soon as I do this, you can see that it has highlighted those two cells which are greater than 900. Now a very important thing to note here is, let me go to conditional formatting. If you want to edit the rule that you have right now applied, which is a formula, you can use the manage rules box, and as soon as you click on manage rules, it opens the conditional formatting rules manager, and here you see that this formula is applied, and you can add a new rule to it, you can edit the existing rule, or you can delete this rule. If there are more than one rule, then you can also change their order by moving up or moving down. And as I mentioned, the rule that is applied later is the one that is visible in case there is a cell which has both these conditions true. Now let's see that the formula I applied here was D3 greater than 900, but when it went to D4, this formula automatically changed itself and became D4 greater than 900. When it went down to D5, it automatically became D5 greater than 900. So since here I have not fixed this cell reference, it was changing the cell reference as it went down. If you fix this, if you make this a $D $3, then this would be a value where it would always check for D3. So now let me show you an example. Let me first clear this rule, and I would say that this entire row should get highlighted when the value is US, when the region is US, else it should not be highlighted. So let me first make that formula here, and if I make that formula here for all these three cells, then I would say is equal to, if this cell is equal to, and let me type US here so that I have some cell to refer this to, and I would say if this cell C3, and I would click F4 F4 F4, so that I have fixed C3, and I would say if C3 is equal to US, enter. Now even if I go to the right to these cells, and I have to lock E1, so I would press F4. Now even if I go to the right, this would return true, because for all these three cells it is checking only for the US. And now if I drag this down and drag it here, you can see that I have created a replica of this data here in conditional formatting, where all these three cells return true when this value is US, but when it is Canada, all these three values return false. Similarly here, all these three values return true. The reason being that I am checking only this cell here with this value, but when I go down, it checks for this value. When I go down further, for all these three cells, it only checks for this value. I would apply the same logic here in conditional formatting as well. So I would copy this formula, and I would select this entire data, go to conditional formatting, new rule, in a formula, and I would paste this. And now I would apply a format, maybe say light orange, and as soon as I click OK, you can see that all the cells that have US, the entire row gets highlighted. So this is how you can use the concept of relative and absolute cell referencing to highlight either a single cell or the entire row or the entire column using the formula in conditional formatting. Similarly, you can do a lot of things. Let me clear the formatting first. I would go to conditional formatting, clear rules. You can do a lot of things using formulas. You can create complex formulas, you can create simple formulas, you can create VLOOKUP, index match, any kind of formula, and if that formula returns true, then based on that value, true or false, the selected cells get highlighted with the condition is met, or they are not highlighted when the condition is false. So this is how you can use formula in conditional formatting in Excel. In this example, let me show you how to use conditional formatting along with a formula. So the intent here is to highlight all the cells which are in alternate rows. So for example, in this data set, I would want to highlight this entire row, these three cells, and then the one below it should not be highlighted, and then this one should get highlighted, then this one should get highlighted. So I would have to create a formula that would first identify whether it is the alternate row or not, and then it would highlight it using conditional formatting. So to do that, I would use the mod formula along with the row formula. Row formula gives you the current row number. In this case, if I select row and press F9, it gives me 3 because this is row number 3. Let me control Z and go back. And mod formula takes the number and the divisor and would give you the result. So in this case, the divisor I would use is 2. And now I would check whether this is equal to 1 or not. And since I've used 2, it would either be 1 or it would either be 0. So here the row was 3, so this became 1. If this row becomes 4, then this would become 0. Now if this row becomes 5, it would again become 1. So I would check for this condition. I hit enter, and now if I drag this down, you can see that it gives me true, false, true, false, true, false. Similarly, if I drag this to the right, again you can see that it would give me true, false, true, false. So I would simply use this formula. I would copy this and I would select this entire data set, go to conditional formatting, new rule, and in formula I would type this formula and I would apply a format. In this case, maybe say I want to apply light blue color, and I would click OK, OK. And as soon as I do this, you can see that now all the alternate rows have been colored. These are called banded rows or zebra lines, and all these have been applied to alternate rows. If you do not want it on third, if you want this to start from fourth, you can simply change the formula. Again, go to conditional formatting, manage rules, select this and press on edit rules, and here you can change the formula and you can make this 0, and you can check if this is 0, then highlight it. Now when I click OK, OK, you can see that it has changed. Now the first row is not highlighted, it starts from the second row. So this is how you can highlight the second row. If you want to highlight the nth row, then it's a simple formula. Instead of 2, you put that value n. In this case, if you want to highlight every third row, then simply select this data, go to manage rules, edit rule, and instead of 2, make this 3. Now when I click OK, you can see every third row is banded. You can see every third row is colored. This row, and then this row, and then this row. Again, if you wanted to do it for 4, then you can change that condition. So this is how you can highlight every nth row in Excel using conditional formatting. In this part of the video, I'm going to show you a lovely conditional formatting trick. The idea is that I have this data and I want to type a text here, and when I'm done typing, I would want to highlight those records which match this data. So for example, if I type Bob here, then I would want to highlight all those cells which has Bob in it. So to do that, I would first have to create a formula. I would use search formula here, and I would find this text. I would press F4 to lock this, and I would find this within this text, and I would press F4 thrice to lock the column, so that even if I go for this cell and check for this cell, it is only checking for B3 and not C3, and I'll show you what I mean. When I close this and I hit enter, it gives me 1. Now when I drag this to the right, you can see I get 1 for the cell to the right as well to the second cell which is on the right. The reason being that this is again still checking for this cell. So all these 3 cells are checking for the same condition, whether this value is equal to this value. Now if I drag this down, you can see that this gives me 1 when there is a match, but it gives me a value error, and I would use this property to create a conditional formatting logic. I would use is number with this search formula, and if this search returns a number, then this becomes true. If it returns a value error, then this becomes false. So now when I hit enter, this is true, but all those instances where there is a mismatch, for example Harry and Julie, there is a false here. Now I would use this in conditional formatting. So let me select this entire data. Let me go to conditional formatting, new rule, and here within use a formula. I would paste this formula and I would specify the format as orange. Now when I click OK and I click OK, you can see that all the cells which have Bob in it, all those records get highlighted, which means that if there is a match between this cell and this cell, then this record is highlighted. If I change this to Harry, then you can see what happens. Oops. Now when I hit enter, you can see that all the records which has Harry in it get highlighted. Let me also extend this formula for all these cells so that you can see why it is happening. Because all these cells returns true, then this record is highlighted because there is a match. Similarly, if I type Julie and hit enter, then all the records which have Julie in it get highlighted. But this has a drawback. If I delete this, you can see that this entire data set is highlighted for the reason that it is searching for nothing within this, and hence it highlights all these cells, because every time you search nothing with a text string, it would return true or it would return 1 as the number. So to take care of it, I would have to change the formula. I would have to check for two conditions. The first condition would be and I would use these two conditions. I would check them within an AND function, and if both these conditions are true, then only it should return a true. And the condition is that this cell F1, and I would lock this, should not be equal to empty, and the other condition is the existing is number condition. Now when I close the bracket and hit enter, it gives me false because one of the condition is false, which means that this cell is empty. Now when I type say Bob here, it returns true for all those cells where there is a match. So I would use this formula here now, Control C, and I would select this entire data set, go to conditional formatting, manage rules, and here I would edit the rule and paste the new formula. And now when I click OK and I click OK, you can see that even if I delete this, nothing happens. All these records are not highlighted. But if I type something, I type Bob and I hit enter, then all the records which have Bob in it gets highlighted. Now this is a good trick, and you have created a technique where whenever you type and you hit enter, all the records which are matching gets highlighted. But there's a problem that you would have to type this entire record and hit enter, which is not bad, but there is something better that you can do. And let me show you how to do this. First, you would have to use the developer tab. So here I do not have that tab. If you also do not have it, right click on any of these tabs, go to customize the ribbon, and within Excel options dialog box, click on developer, check this box and click OK. Now you have the developer tab here. Click on developer tab, and here you have the controls group, within which go to insert ActiveX controls category and select this text box and click anywhere in the worksheet, and it inserts this text box. Now it is in the edit mode. You can see that design mode, it is green in color, which means that this is in the design mode. I would right click on this and click on properties, and here you have the linked cell field. Then within this, type the cell that you want to be linked with it. In this case I would use F1, which is this cell, and I would close this. Now go to developer tab, design mode, and click on it, and as soon as you click on it, the design mode is turned off so that you can use this text box. You can type anything in it and see what happens. As soon as I type something here, I type A here, all the names which have A in it, all the records get highlighted which have the sales rep name which has alphabet A. Similarly, if I type AR, then Harry, Mark and Martha record get highlighted. Now if I type T, only the records of Martha are highlighted. So you can see that I have made it dynamic in a way that it is highlighting those cells. When you type, you do not have to press enter or do anything. So for example, here I type HA, and as soon as I type HA, Harry and Martha records get highlighted. Now just for the cosmetic purposes, you can simply go back to the design mode, activate it, click on it and move it here, and maybe you can increase its size so that it looks like you have only this field where you would be typing it. Go back to the design mode. So now it gets fixed here as a button. You can simply delete this because this is not what we want. It's what it was just for the demonstration purposes. Now you have this field here and you can simply type anything, and as soon as you type it would get highlighted. So for example, if I type J, then all the records with Julie and Joe gets highlighted. So this is how you can use conditional formatting to create a dynamic database which gets highlighted as you type. That is it in this video. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you and have a nice day.